Alrighty guys, so if you're joining me right now, that means you are needing a little bit of intervention on those factoring methods, which is what we're going to be going over today. So just a couple little notes that you can write down or just follow along with me here. When we are factoring, if we've got, no matter how many terms we've got, first thing we do is we check for a GCF, okay? Then if we have two terms, we try for difference of squares, and if that doesn't work, we end up either just not being able to factor it at all, or if it was solving, which we'll get to in the next video, we would do what we call a quadratic formula, okay? Then we've got three terms. We always want to try X method first after we've taken out that GCF if there is one. And then again, if we were solving, we would do quadratic formula. If that didn't work, there will be no quadratic formula on this first page, so don't worry about that. And then we have four terms. That means grouping. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started on these problems. If we look at number one, count how many terms there are. There are obviously four, so we know we're going to have to do grouping. Okay, and we do want to check and see if there is a GCF here. So 30, 25, 18, 15, do they all have anything? And I don't think they do. Okay, but at least we tried, at least we checked, because we do have to do that. Sometimes there will be one. And then we look to see if each of them have a common variable, and they do not, so we're good to go. No GCF. We'll go ahead, we'll group the first two terms together. Put a plus sign, group this next two terms. And now we check for a GCF in each one. So 30x to the third and negative 25x squared. So we'll start with just the 30 and the negative 25. They both have 5. Then we check for a variable. So if one has x to the third and the other has x squared, that means they both have 2. So they both have x squared. Okay, when we take that out, we divide. 30 divided by 5 is 6. X to the third divided by x squared just leaves me x to the first. Negative 25 divided by 5 is a minus 5, and the x squareds are going to cancel. We check for a GCF in the second two, 18x and 15. Well, we look, they're not going to have a common variable, but 18 and 15 both have a positive 3. When we take that out, we're left with 6x minus 5, which matches my other set of parentheses, which is what I wanted. My final answer then is just going to be my outsides together times my insides. And that is it. Okay. Moving on. Number 2. Check for a GCF. Doesn't look like there is one, but we got 3 terms. That means try the X method. We multiply the first number times the last number. 5 times negative 20 is negative 100. We put the middle number in the bottom. And now we want to think about two numbers that will multiply to negative 100 that will add to negative 48. Okay, so if we struggle with this, we type in negative 100 to our calculator, start dividing it by stuff. Okay, you should end up kind of seeing, hey, 50 and 2. I can manipulate those numbers to get them to multiply to a negative 100 and add to a negative 48 by making the 50 negative and keeping the 2 positive. Okay, once I've done that, I keep my first term, 5x squared. These are my two new middle terms. They become negative 50x and plus 2x, which add up to negative 48x. Now I don't have that term anymore, and I keep my last term of negative 20. And now I just have 4 terms, just like what I did on number 1. I'm grouping. So group my first 2 together, put a plus sign, group the second 2. They already had a plus sign, so I just added in some parentheses there. 5x squared and negative 50x. 5 and 50 both have a 5. X squared and x both have x to the first. When we take that out, 5 divided by 5 is just 1. I don't need to write that. X squared divided by x is x. If you did put a 1 here, that's okay. Okay, 1x is totally fine to write. It will not be wrong, but this is just more proper to write it as just x. Okay, then we do negative 50x divided by 5x. Negative 50 divided by 5 is a minus 10. The x's cancel. Okay. Then we got 2x and negative 20. Those are both going to have a positive 2. Leaves me with x minus 10. Parentheses match, so I'm good. My final answer are my outsides together and my insides. And that's it. Okay. Next one, we've got two terms. Okay, we said when we're dealing with two terms, we always consider difference of squares. We also have difference in sum of cubes, which I forgot to mention up here. That's the other one too. But we just want to really pay attention on these two problems, 3 and 4. These look very similar, okay? But we want to pay attention to the exponent that's on the variable. So if I look at number 3, that's a 2. That means square, okay? 3 would mean cube, 2 means square. And since we have a subtraction sign, we can do difference of squares, which if you notice that pattern is a minus b, a plus b. Okay, so to find a and b, since it's squares, we want to square root each term, okay? And don't forget that the variable is being square rooted too, so it doesn't go away. It's not just going to be the number, okay? It's going to be the square root of 25, which is 5, but also the square root of x squared, which is x. Same thing over here. B is going to be the square root of 4, which is 2, and the square root of y squared, which is y. So now I have my a and b, and I just plug them in. Where they go? So we've got 5x minus 2y times 5x plus 2y. Okay, in whichever order. So if you put 5x plus 2y times 5x minus 2y, same exact thing. Okay? So again, that's difference of squares. We go on to number 4, and we notice, hey, these aren't squares anymore. These are cubes. So we've got to use the difference of cubes formula, which looks similar but different. It's a minus b times a squared plus ab plus b squared. So we're still finding a and b, similar way, okay? Instead of square rooting them, we are cube rooting. If I find the cube root of 27c to the third, I type in the cube root of 27 to my calculator, and I get 3, and then c. B is going to be the square root of 8d to the third, which is going to be 2d. And now I'm just going to plug these in where they go. So a minus b is going to be 3c minus 2d. A squared is taking this term and squaring it. So if I square that, I've got to square everything, the 3 and the c. So that becomes 9c squared. Okay? And then we've got plus a times b. So I just need to multiply a and b together. Okay? When I do that, 3c times 2d is just going to be 3 times 2 is 6. And c times d, just put them there. They're not the same variable. And then lastly, b squared. So same thing, we're taking this b value, we're squaring both terms in it, okay? So this becomes 4d squared. And that's it. You can't do anything else beyond that. So big thing there is just knowing the formula, okay? And then knowing to plug in a and b. Number 5. Another trinomial, okay? Another trinomial that doesn't have a GCF. Those don't have anything in common, okay? So I go ahead, I do X method. This one should work out pretty nicely. 1 times negative 5 is negative 5. On the bottom, negative 4. Two numbers that will multiply to give me negative 5 and add to give me negative 4. So I know it's going to be 5 and 1. Those are the only two factors of 5. And then I need to make one of them negative for this to work, and it's going to have to be the 5. Okay, now we go. We've got m squared minus 5m plus 1m minus 5. We do our grouping. You can toss in some parentheses, or you could go ahead and write it out as another step. Just make sure there's a plus sign between. M squared and negative 5m both have an m, which leaves me with m minus 5. 1m and negative 5 only have a 1. That's okay. Okay, everything has 1 in common. That is still a factor. And then my outsides go together and my insides go together. And that's my answer. Okay, and then last but not least, number 6. We look, check for a GCF. This one's looking like these are gonna have 1, okay, for sure. Definitely gonna be able to take out a 3. And then x cubed, x squared, and x, well, they all have x to the first. So 3x is gonna be my GCF here. And when I take that out, I divide 3x to the third divided by 3x, I just am left with x squared, okay? Negative 27 divided by 3 is a minus 9. And then my x's, I just have x to the first left. And then we've got our 42 divided by 3, which is going to be 14. Okay. And now we want to go ahead and drop this guy down because he's got to make it to the final answer. Don't forget about him. And now we're just dealing, just like the previous problem, a trinomial. We do x method. On the top, we got 1 times 14. On the bottom, negative 9. 2 numbers that will multiply to positive 14, add to negative 9. We got 7 and 2, but they're both negative. Leaves me with x squared minus 7x minus 2x plus 14. I don't have a plus sign right here, so I'm going to go ahead and write out the next step. We got x squared minus 7x plus sign, negative 2x plus 14. The first 2 just have x in common. I'm left with x minus 7. The next 2, since this leading term's negative, and they both have a 2, I'm going to take out a negative 2, and I'm left with x minus 7. So my final answer is 3x times my outsides, x minus 2, times my insides, x minus 7. And that is it, my friends. Okay. So once you have made it past this part, you're going to go ahead, complete step 2 problems on your own to practice, and then when you're done, you will be ready for the requiz. Thank you.